had a belief that Asians can't have a positive effect on it. I had this in the back of my mind, like, I'll never be able to positively impact communities because I'm brown. And I had that belief. I didn't know what I was doing. I had foggy glasses on. That's why self-compassion is so incredible, because it helps you look in the mirror without blaming your true self and just looking at the performance over person. My intentions right now is to ripple compassion into the world of entrepreneurs.
Welcome to the Bay HQ, where we inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians. Today we have with us Nilesh Satguru, who is a self-mastery coach and a medical doctor. How are you doing today?
Very well, thanks for having me.
So we've obviously been in this situation before. I interviewed you, but it was virtual that time. And what I want to hear about for this time, for the audience, is when you're growing up, did you ever think that you'd be doing what you are today, that you'd ever have your own company and have your own business?
In a word, no. At a really young age, I remember sitting on my grandmother's knee, and she was a psychiatrist, she was a medical doctor. And she, I suppose, had a big inspiration on me to become a doctor. And of course, as you well know about Asian culture, a lot of us become doctors, lawyers, accountants, professions. So there's always this caring, compassionate side that was there from a young age. And I always thought I was going to be a doctor for the rest of my life.
Where did this belief come from, right? So you said, okay, I'm going to be a doctor. Then you obviously went on to become a doctor, right?
Yeah.
Did it make you happy? Was it everything you thought it was going to be?
Well, I absolutely loved being a doctor, and technically I still am. I still have my license. I'm on sabbatical. Sometimes it's not, you don't have to hate something in order to do something else. And so I went through a lot of struggles, which I'll happily share in medicine as a junior doctor and then becoming a GP partner. But then this burning desire for entrepreneurship, moving into the world of coaching, came in, and it just completely overrode anything else.
Where did that desire come from? What was the trigger, or was it building up over time? Was it a sudden switch?
Yeah, it always builds up over time. I never believe those stories they say it was just one thing. And there were many, many steps. So I was working in medicine, and I knew when I became a GP, I had my dream job. I remember I used to drive past the surgery. It's this beautiful little village, and I imagine being this elbow padded GP, and I somehow managed to get a job as a GP partner there. I was very lucky. But as soon as I started seeing patients, I realized what I really wanted was transformation, to make people better. And the tools I had were just not making people better. 20, 30 medications, 33 days people were waiting to come and see me. I had a list of 2,400 patients. It was really, really difficult. So then I started to look for other avenues within medicine, if you like, being like a little entrepreneur within medicine. So when I ended up leaving the practices, and the whole story around that, I went and started to work with companies to help them with their employees' well-being. There's something called occupational medicine. And so if people had been off for a long time sick, I would see them to help them return to work. And whilst I was doing that, I also studied with Rangan Chatterjee and the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine, and learned lifestyle medicine. And so then I learned about health coaching, and then I was being coached through the NHS Leadership Academy. You see, there's so many steps. But I remember there was definitely one moment when I was speaking to this person who had been off work for quite some time, 6 months, very stressed. And he was working at a managerial level. And he was just being treated awfully. No compassion for him and what he was going. This isn't someone who was taking loads of sick days. And I thought, I could be working with the leaders of these businesses, helping them be more compassionate with their staff, helping them get the best out of themselves, their families and their staff. And then serendipitously, various things occurred, and that's what started to happen.
At the beginning, did you go completely, leave the practice and leave the medicine world? But you said you're doing these other things on the side. Was it a balance? Was it part-time first? Did it go full-time? How did that transition work?
Yeah, I was smiling because there was no clear boundaries. It wasn't like I just, the thing about the medical partnership is that I signed on the dotted line of a contract saying that I would have 38 years of job security, fantastic, secure job, unless I died or did something awful. So it was very difficult for me to kind of leave that, as you can imagine. But when I did leave that, I carried on as a locum GP. And then I had all these little projects going on. So I was doing some lifestyle medicine work with another GP surgery. I was doing this occupational health work. And then as the coaching started to build up, I went down literally from 4 days of medicine, 3 days, 2 days, 1 day. And now in February, I went full time in the business and I'm on sabbatical now. So it was a very stepwise thing. And I would honestly encourage that for everybody. If anyone is thinking of going into entrepreneurship, it doesn't have to be this grand, FU resignation letter, and just take each step as it comes.
So you mentioned there about lifestyle medicine. For people who don't know what that is, could you just explain why lifestyle medicine and what made you interested in that area as well?
Well, it's something I'm so incredibly passionate about. So lifestyle medicine, the definition, if you like, is it's a specialty based in science and evidence that looks to prevent, treat and reverse, and that's the sexy bit that got me really excited, chronic conditions. So that's essentially what I became a doctor for, to reverse conditions, reverse people's anxiety, depression, diabetes, high blood pressure, erectile problems. And it was like magic, MID. I went in all the frustrations I had as a doctor, and because you want to make your patients better, they started to melt away when I learnt a lot of the practices that Rongan teaches in his course with Dr. Ian Panja and the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine. I started to see people get better. It was incredibly fulfilling, but I also realized that wasn't actually the root cause. And that's what led me into the mind, the spirit, coaching, the true self.
You were doing all these things almost concurrently, right?
Yeah.
For it to be a time. Who was the first coaching client? What made you think, okay, I'm going to work? So you said about working with the leaders directly. How did you get that first client?
It's a fantastic question. Well, I think it's very rare for someone to get into the world of coaching unless they've experienced it themselves. And something magical happened in that I was in a leadership role as this GP partner. And I saw an email for NHS Leadership Academy coaching. And so somehow I got this amazing coach, just a wonderful lady. Her name was Jo. She helped me see what I couldn't see. She helped me believe in myself like I could never believe in myself. And she actually had amazing strategies of how to deal with it. And she saw how excited I was about this process. And so she serendipitously reached out a year after we finished coaching. And that was just when I'd done the diploma with the British Society of Lifestyle Medicine. And this is a really important thing. I didn't know what I was doing. I had foggy glasses on. I literally was just following loads of different ideas and interests. But every now and again, I'd get a ping. And now I know that's an intuitive ping. And I had this ping when I was doing lifestyle medicine that behavioral change was where it was at. And so as I was studying the lifestyle medicine, my old coach reached out to me and she said, we've got this health coaching diploma. Do you want to go do that? So I did that, and then it happened that I basically met people serendipitously. I started to talk about what I was doing, and I offered them to come for an experience of coaching. This is the most important thing. And so, yes, it was someone that I serendipitously met. And then actually the next client was a patient recommended me to someone else. And so it was all through kind of existing people that I knew. Yeah. Built from there.
So obviously being a GP partner, you'd had years and years studying to become that level, right? And then going into coaching, it's a very different thing, right? You can get diplomas, you can get training in it, but it's not quite the same as, I guess, the confidence you might have as a GP, because, I've got 10 years experience, I've got my degrees, I've passed my exams. How was that experience? Because a lot of people might think, I'm not at the stage that I can do coaching, or I shouldn't be a coach, or can I help people? How do I make this worth it? Yeah. How did you overcome those kind of questions?
Here's the biggest mistake I made, and most coaches make, is that I didn't do the deep work first. Or I did some work, but it wasn't deep enough. And I still find now the deeper I go within myself, the more I can help people see their true selves. And yeah, I trained with the High Performance Institute, which was phenomenal training. And the reason why I was drawn to that was that it was based on the world's largest study of high performance. See, this is my medical brain. I needed the data, I needed the logic. And what I realized is with training with them is that there is a rhythm, a structure to help people have lives filled with positive relationships, satisfaction, peace, joy, love. There's a framework for that. It's a process. But it's another thing to help people move beyond possibility, to help people, create a powerful mission that serves humanity. And that's why actually I left from the High Performance Institute as well. And I'm now completely using all of my own methods. So, if you want to get into the world of coaching, certifications are all great, but never, ever, ever forget that you doing the deep work is arguably the most important thing. That's what I continue to do.
Before we started recording, you mentioned as well how when you grew up, right, you didn't have anybody who looked like you around you, right?
Yeah.
But you're mentioning how you've trained with Rangan Chatterjee and people like that. And it's somebody who looks like me, who's got my background, who's doing very well. When you said you're at school and you said you're the only Asian person in your school,
yeah,
how did that transition happen? How did you start seeing, did you feel like you belonged at that stage, or when did that kind of come in?
It's a fantastic question. My schooling, there are probably people on this who've been to loads of different schools, and we were quite unique because if anyone's Sri Lankan and they know this, my mum is from Sinhalese family, my dad's from a Tamil family. And so from a young age, they really taught me this concept of unity. We didn't learn Sinhalese or Tamil. We only spoke English at home. We didn't go to any specific, like a Tamil school or a Sinhalese school. In fact, relatively, we knew very little about the culture compared to our cousins. And then we moved to the Netherlands. My dad got a job in the Netherlands. And it was like my minds were blown because at my school, there were 65 nationalities in the school. And we were living in The Hague, which is one of the most international places in the world. And we then got into a community of Asians and we started to know a lot of Sri Lankans. They were very small, tight knit. But you're exactly right. I remember so I spent about 7 years off social media from end of university time till, midway through my kind of medical career. And then instantly I found myself drawn to Rangan, and I remember Rupi Ajla, if anyone, I just found myself drawn, and I thought, oh yeah, it is because they're like me. And I didn't realize that, but I was subconsciously drawn to them. And when I saw them, I realized I had a bullshit belief, forgive me on that Asians can't have a positive effect on that. I had this in the back of my mind, like, I'll never be able to positively impact communities because I'm brown. And I had that belief. But then when I saw those people doing such amazing work, it was incredibly inspiring.
It's one of the challenges, I think, right? Because part of what this podcast is, right, is getting people like yourself on so that people listen to me like, oh, okay, there's somebody who looks like me who's doing this. But also you sometimes need people who will just break the mold. Like, oh, it doesn't matter, it's not anybody who looks like me. And they do it anyway. And you've got that mix of people. And it's really interesting to me to find how it affects different people in different ways, right? And some people might not even know that it affects them. Because I guess with that belief, did you know that you always had that? Or was something just in the back of your head that was holding you back and maybe...
Yeah, well, we can absolutely... This is, underpins all of my work. We have a phrase called SMB, shift my beliefs. No, I didn't know it was holding me back. It's only when you raise your consciousness do you become aware of such things. But I remember I was always fascinated with leadership from a young age. And I remember my brother is older, and my dad used to say that, oh, he is such a great leader. And he was brilliant at bringing people together. He became an entrepreneur. But I remember I had the story going in my head, which is just a story, that the reason why I didn't get cricket captain when I was 11 or 14 or whatever it was, I remember one of the most painful moments was I thought I was going to get a leadership position at school. And I was so clear in my last year that I was going to get it. And I didn't get it. And I spent hours crying. Clearly I wasn't ready for it at that stage. So I think that probably did in my head without me realizing it. There was probably something there saying, well, it's clearly because, of the color of my skin, or it's clearly because I feel I wasn't good enough. Beliefs, there's some research that come out by Stanford, 95% of our actions are down to our beliefs. And so that's where my point of focus is nowadays. If there's something I'm repetitively butting my head with, I look at my own beliefs. And it's very empowering because actually there's only about 15 to 20 core beliefs that we all struggle with. And,
what are some of the problems you see quite commonly where beliefs that people need to shift, where you see they hold this negative belief or toxic belief, and maybe they're not even aware that they hold it?
Yeah, I want you to picture this scene. So imagine you are reaching the top of your career and you're reaching an executive level, director level at your main company, whether that's in corporate, whether it's in accountancy or law, or a top field of medicine. And you're giving, you're getting amazing feedback, but inside you feel empty. You feel burnt out. You feel like you're giving and you're not getting. You feel undervalued. You feel like you're not appreciated. And this is actually a real life story from one of my clients. And what happens is they move another company. They think it's because of the company, and it happens again. And then it happens again. And then they start to actually take a deep look at themselves. And they realize that they've been overworking through fear of criticism or fear of success, or they haven't really gone inwards and done what their heart's telling them to do because they're afraid they might lose something as opposed to what they're going to gain. And so this literally happened in one of my sessions with one of my clients, that they were leaving their role as a director of a corporate, and they wanted to set up a wellness business. But there was something that kept blocking them and holding them back. And when we went deep, we realized it was this fear of success, which is actually the fear of the loss of love or belonging. Because, of course, success can be quite a lonely place for some people, because all of a sudden you don't think in the same way, you don't have the same environment, same people, same beliefs. And so often the inner child, or the little part within us, is afraid that we're going to lose something. So the good news is, when you're aware of that, you can surround yourself with people who make you feel like you belong. And as a result, you can have the best of both worlds.
Something I'm spotting a lot now, right, is you often see quite a few Asians getting to the top of the ladder in the corporate world. And many of them might complain about their bosses, whatever like that. But there's relatively fewer of them who are then going out and doing their own thing and actually building their own companies.
Yeah.
And I see that quite often. You see, now that I do my own thing, I go to some of these events and you can see people complaining about promotions or this or that, and they're doing very well in their careers. But this whole other world of potentially doing their own thing, it's, even though they know they're good at what they do, they know that they've got the skills, they believe that they should get promoted, they still don't believe in themselves, or they don't believe that they're capable of doing their own thing and stepping out of that corporate ladder. Is that something you see quite often as well? And you mentioned it was similar to what the problem you said there, right? Of the person who is doing very well in their career and wants to step aside and build their own business. But the idea that those skills won't translate.
Yeah. And by the way, they did translate, and they're doing amazingly well, of course, because as we well know, that building a business is all about skills as well. I want to talk about my own story here because, I lived through this lens without realizing it, of my worth, my happiness, my success comes from things outside of me. So I used to go to medical trainings. I used to see that the medical lecturers had all these letters next to their name. I'm like, I'm going to get those. And I did. I got this occupational health diploma. I got this lifestyle medicine diploma. I had 21 letters next to my name. And I shouldn't say it was worth. It certainly wasn't worthless, but it didn't have the meaning that I really wanted. What I really sought was service, contribution, transformation of people, making a difference. And I just thought that was the vehicle that I had to go down. I think I just want to share with people that one of the most important things that I've learned through my mistakes is you must never look outside of yourself, what we call object referral. Keep your true self as the point of referral. And that's essentially self-mastery. Pay attention to those moments that feel timeless, like this conversation. Pay attention to when your heart feels on fire, when you have passion and desire and love, freedom, where someone pays you a compliment for something that seemed effortless to you, but to them it was the world. Pay attention to that, because it's always speaking to you. And, if you do that and you follow that, I can't guarantee it. The thing about looking outside of yourself, it's all based on control and power, like you wanting to know what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
But nobody knows this stuff, It's like life is a lot more fun when we detach from that. And I get it. It's really hard to do that. So that's my lesson from that, from collecting all those things that I thought would make me happy. There's actually one other small story. As I was just about to make the jump into entrepreneurship and I left the partnership, I was working at the other practice in the village. And I was looking into the eyes of this guy who was 10 years ahead of me in his career, had all the titles, amazing, rock star of the world, shall we say, in that department. And they looked miserable. I remember saying that to my dad. I remember going back saying it to my dad and just saying, I don't want that, looking inwards and not outwards.
Obviously, a lot of people are asking from the podcast, or they reach out to me about different things, and they'll say, and like I said, they'll do some of these external markers of success, right? So I've been featured in Forbes, I've been done this, I've been done that. And it's like, now that I'm over 150 episodes in, right, it's a bit, those markers have changed in terms of my perception of them. But what I think is important sometimes with some of these markers, they can help you if it's a means to an end, right?
Yes.
If you're getting those letters because you want to actually use those, like what that thing that you studied for is going to enable you to do things in the right way. It's going to enable you to do things that are going to make you happy. If you're getting it for the sake of getting it, that's where the problem comes into play. And it doesn't matter what you're in, right? If you're an entrepreneur and you're just trying really hard to win an award or be featured in Forbes or be in the BBC, then is that just for the meaning, not for the, you can put it on your website.
Status. We're all seeking status, aren't we? And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. You know, the whole reason why our families want us to be doctors, lawyers, and accountants is for status, because status meant security.
Yeah.
Status meant you were respected, not criticized. So this makes sense. It's not that you shouldn't feel wrong for doing that.
Yeah, and I think what happens over time is that people start to realize that status by itself doesn't necessarily mean anything, right? But if, for example, those letters enable you to then help more people, that means something. And even if you go back to my karate background, right, is that a lot of people quit as soon as they get a black belt because they just wanted the status of saying they're a black belt. If they actually enjoy the process, then you take that black belt and you continue training. And that's why I think a lot of people should think about more. It's like, if you're trying to chase them, try to go into this, try to do that, is it that enables you to then do more of what you enjoy? Or are you just doing it for that tick? And the more you do things just for that tick of like, yes, I've done that, but did it mean anything? Did it not mean anything? And I think the sad thing is sometimes it takes success in order for people to realize that. And we're talking about it earlier in terms of money as well, right? Yes. People think, oh, I need this amount of money to be happy. Is that really true? Or is that just a story you tell yourself? And it's so difficult when you're in the journey to know why you're doing things correctly.
Absolutely. I've got to ask you about your karate. One question.
Yeah.
What do you believe your karate gives you in the rest of your life?
So I haven't done it now for a few years, but I did it for over a decade. And the key thing it gave me is a lot of confidence as well, right? Is that you see a lot of people very much driven by needing to prove they're strong, right? So for example, like earlier this week before we recorded this, I admitted on social media that I've started therapy because I don't need to prove I'm strong anymore to anybody.
Beautiful.
I'm not worried about people thinking I'm weak. And karate, it's not because I can go around and beat people up. It's not about that. It's about the inner belief it gave me, is that if I can handle the training, if I have that focus, I have that mindset, then that means I can go further with life, right? And it means that I back myself in different situations. And I think that pressure, if you're used to kind of standing there and people trying to punch you in the face and you can not be scared, then it gives you that belief in other problems you face in life as well. And I think that's the main thing karate gave me. And it doesn't need to be a martial art, right? It could be anything. Anything you do to a higher level.
This is exactly right. And please keep going. I was just riffing on you.
Yeah. And it can be dance. It can be like, one of the things I think I found throughout my life is that I do multiple things to get to a higher level, then I pick something new to start, right? And what I enjoy is that stage of once you've got to that stage where you're very good at something, you've got that belief in it, and it just feels effortless, like you mentioned about earlier, right? Because that effortlessness, that's an amazing feeling. And that's something which I enjoy, rather than just a simple fact of, oh yeah, I can tell people I'm a black belt. It's more about that journey and that feeling it gives you. And I guess in medicine would have given you that, right? So when you're then stepping into becoming an entrepreneur, obviously you're not good at the beginning, right?
Like, no, not at all.
And how did you overcome that? How did you go from this you must have had self-belief in I'm a great doctor, but then being able to take that step down and make mistakes and I'm not very good at this? Because that's something I think stops a lot of people from doing new things, right? They might not enjoy what they're doing or it might not make them massively happy, but like at least they know I'm good at it.
Yeah.
Whereas it's hard for people to then go to something which they're bad at and start that journey again.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, look, I'm going to pick up on two things from your story and I'll relate it to this. The first thing is what Amma was talking about with his karate is the exact beautiful definition of self-referral. You know, in that moment, you didn't need to prove anything, self-confidence, you stand differently, you see more opportunities, your life's just much better. And then the second thing you said is effortful to effortless. And I want to ask everyone, and I ask myself this question a lot, what right now feels effortful that can become effortless? Or what at the moment feels effortless that was once effortful? So in one word, in how I transitioned, and it's compassion. And that's essentially what I do. I help people transform through the power of compassion, because compassion sows a seed of self-mastery within you. When I started, oh my God, I've lost count of the amount of no's I got. I lost count of the amount of times I thought I made a fool out of myself and beat myself up. And I started to look for ways of how I can enjoy this journey of what is just a beautiful process for entrepreneurship of being able to actually help people. I mean, when you think about it for a minute, you start off with an idea and all of a sudden you're helping people. And then you have people that you have subcontract and, you support you. It's an amazing process. But without compassion, I would have given up. And I 100% would have given up. I would have gone back to medicine. I would probably be unfulfilled again. I would be struggling in ways that, who knows? I mean, my dad died, just like yours dad died recently. My dad died in March. And without compassion for myself, this is what I'm talking about, self-compassion first, I couldn't have continued to produce, be out there serving my clients and my family, my young family. So in a word, it's compassion that helps you going. There's loads of research on this as well, and I could talk for hours about that, but I won't do that today.
What are some of the mistakes that you made and you had to almost forgive yourself for and be like, okay, it's okay that I made that mistake.
Yeah.
And I've learned from it. And maybe you can help somebody who might be making that mistake today or is going to make that mistake in a couple of months' time.
Yeah, let's say 3 things. Okay, so the first one is one that I've only recently realized, and it's the immense power of self-awareness. That's why self-compassion is so incredible, because it helps you look in the mirror without blaming your true self and just looking at the performance over person. And so I recently went on a silent retreat and I had a good long look at myself. And I realized that when I followed a certain process, things worked out. When I didn't, it didn't. It is simple as that. Second thing we spoke about off air, which is being too influenced by the people who aren't your people. And this is why I mentioned earlier, whether it's coaching or whatever, do the deep work on yourself, look inside of yourself, find out who are you, what do you value, what do you repeatedly do, what environments are important to you, who's influenced you in your career. When you understand these parts of yourself, you start to become a magnet for people who are your people. You keep those people close to you, and everybody else you very politely don't listen to, with compassion and kindness. And I was too influenced. And by the way, I mean everyone else. I mean the people you see on social media. I mean the people like, if I'm not your person, don't listen to me. That's completely right. And then the last one is focus and attention, which is a huge problem that I struggled with. And I've realized the great quote is, attention energizes, intention transforms. So we were talking about this before. If you've got problems with your energy, which of course many of us do, and I had, it was up and down, it's because my attention was being pulled in so many different directions. Trying to be the best father I could be, trying to be the best brother, the best son, also, cook at home, whatever it is, and trying to do 10 different projects at once and realizing that I could be a jack of all trades but master of none. Those are the 3 big mistakes that I've made, really, I'd say, is a lack of self-awareness, and you can always improve in that. The second is being too influenced by others who aren't your people. And the third is paying detailed attention to the quality of your attention. If you get the quality of your attention right, things happen fast, and they have done for me in that respect.
You mentioned intentions there, right? So for the audience, where are you today and what are you most excited about for the future? What's coming up?
Yeah, amazing. So the way I look at intentions is a desire without an attachment to exactly how it happens and the end result. And I really struggled for a long time. I was very attached to the way things should happen. And my intentions right now is to ripple compassion into the world of entrepreneurs. And that could be through writing, through speaking, through coaching. I'm very open. And as a result, I've just become infinitely more relaxed. Now, one thing I will say is I must be better in a lot of ways with the business aspects. And I'm starting to love that process. But like many coaches, we love the coaching, but not the business side of it. And now I'm learning to love that process. I haven't really explained what I mean by self-mastery, but essentially self-mastery is the continuous expansion of who you are, and the effortless fulfillment of meaningful desires is essentially how you flourish, how you have that sense of well-being, and not just life satisfaction at any one moment. It's actually about contribution, service, giving back. Going inwards to give outwards is probably the simplest way I would describe it.
So enjoy this conversation, but we're going to have to go to some quick fire questions now. So the first one is, who are 3 British stations you'd love to shout out or you think people listening right now should be paying attention to and following?
Okay, well, I'm Sri Lankan by background, so I've got to shout out Ramesh Ranganathan. I've seen that I mean, he's completely, what I found so amazing about him is that he's made a career out of the jokes we used to tell at parties, which is brilliant. I must shout out my good friend, mentor, inspiration, Simon Ong, who's been on this podcast. He's just the deep work he goes into and is making, a global impact with his work now. And then third of all, I've got to shout out Rangan Chatterjee, who was an absolute huge inspiration when I first saw him. And I got to meet him, an incredibly kind person as well, which is a lovely thing.
So huge fan of all those people. Next question is, what could people listening right now reach out to you about for help?
If you're wanting to unlock your true self, true success and fulfillment or self-mastery, so if you're struggling with clarity about your next steps or self-doubt or self-confidence, or really if you have a powerful vision for the future and you need somebody to help you see what you cannot see, you need someone to challenge you in ways that no one else has, and to give you a really deep experience of that, then be in touch.
And then on the flip side, is there anything you need help with right now?
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, I got 2 young kids. You got the trials and tribulations of a young family. I always am looking for people to challenge me. I love being challenged. Call me out, ask me questions, tell me what you think I could be better at. I'm always interested in people who can do that. And I think I don't love this word marketing. I much prefer giving people a deep experience and building relationships. That's what I much prefer. But I'm always looking to improve in that department. How can I build more authentic relationships? So if anyone's open to that, I'm open to it.
So love talking today. Have you got any final words to the audience?
Yeah, if there's one message I want to leave people is that compassion not only reduces suffering, but it also creates mastery. And never forget that going inwards to give outwards, that's what we're really here to do. And, hopefully through a lot of the mistakes and stories I shared, we can ripple compassion out into the world.
Hello everyone. Thank you so much for listening. It means a huge amount to us. And we don't think you realise how important you are. Because if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, if you leave us a 5-star review, it makes a world of difference. And if you believe in what we're trying to do here, to inspire, connect and guide the next generation of British Asians, if you do those things, you can help us achieve that mission, and you can help us make a bigger impact. And by doing that, it means we can get bigger guests, we can host more events, we can do more for the community. So you can play a huge part. So thank you so much for supporting us.